What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So today we are just going to do something really simple, really easy to do at home, and that's going to be patching up inner tubes. Obviously this is inevitable. It's going to happen to you. You're going to get a flat at some point in time, and for the most part you're probably just going to replace it and just buy a whole new one and forget about the old one, right? Well, the cool part is that if the puncture is really tiny, like a piece of glass or a thorn got into it, and it was really small, like a mil, for example, a millimeter, then most of the time, almost all the time, you can usually patch it. So that's what we're just going to do right here, and it's going to be really fast, simple, pretty inexpensive, and most of the stuff you probably already have it. Some you might have to get online or at a shop, but no biggie, it's really inexpensive. So let's just jump right into the stuff that you need. So first thing, obviously, you're going to need your tubes, whatever you're going to work on. This is optional, however, I recommend it. You might want to get like a bucket of water. I got this thing really cheap at the dollar store, and just get some water, soak it all in there. You can also use your sink if you want to. You could just make sure that you plug it up, throw some water in there, and the reason for this is to find where the hole is. Sometimes because the hole is so tiny, you cannot see it. The other thing you're definitely gonna need is a bike pump or a small hand pump, whatever. You need to be able to inflate your your inner tubes, because we need it to obviously push out air so we can identify it when we get it in the water. And then we're also going to need the patch kit. Now what I have here is the Rema Tip Top patch kit and the Rema Tip Top Cement. These came separate. I will link this information down below so you guys can look into it. But yeah, this has 100 pieces in it. Obviously I'm not going to use 100 pieces like in one go, but super convenient to have this many. I bought this a while ago, so it's been really good, and I definitely trust this brand. There are like Parks Tools patches out there, and like pre-made patches that you can just like throw on there, but I think this one works best. And you're also going to need some trusty dusty sandpaper. Don't look at mine, my stuff's pretty old. I've already used this like a bunch of times, but it still works for this small project, so it's all good. Any kind of sandpaper, as long as it's got some grit on it, so it's all good. And last but not least, another trusty dusty, the old Sharpie, a permanent marker. You're going to need something like this for two reasons. One, we're going to use this to roll the patch onto the tube after we've gotten it on there, but before rolling the patch you need to identify exactly where the hole is, so we're obviously going to mark it off, and the permanent marker is definitely super helpful for that, or super handy. This is probably the best tool so far for that. So last thing, actually, right before we get started, is I want to show you guys what the end result will look like. This is roughly what it's going to be. Now, before you put this back onto your tire, I will say one thing, is that you want to check your tire. You want to check the inside and the outside of where the rubber is on your tire to make sure that whatever punctured your inner tube is not still there. Especially if it's a small piece of glass or a small like thorn that might have gone into the tire, that might still be there. So you want to check your entire tire very thoroughly to make sure that it's not there, because if it's still there and you put this back on there, you're just going to end up flat again. So you don't want to do that to yourself. So please check your tire before you put your inner tube back in there. Right, so first thing we're going to need to do is get the bucket of water or your sink, either or. Get that all readied up. Make sure your water's in there. It's good to go. And then you're going to need to grab your inner tube, and you're going to need to pump some air into this thing so that way we can submerge it in the water. All right, so once you got a decent amount of air in your inner tube, just go ahead and submerge it. And I like to actually start right at the valve, and I work my way around. Now, I've already marked this inner tube off for the sake of time, but I'm just going to show you guys how I personally do it. And I start at the valve, and I just work my way around, right? So basically, all you're doing is you're submerging the inner tube slowly through the water and finding exactly where it bubbles up from, right? And you're basically just going to go all the way around until you find your bubble. So this is a little troublesome because obviously it is an inner tube, so it's a little wonky. It's just going to want to flap all over the place, but no worries. It takes a second to do this. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, and once you've gotten back to the valve, then hopefully you've identified exactly where the hole is. I found it much earlier. I had already worked on this thing, but It was right here. So once you found that hole, just go ahead and use something to wipe the area off really well. Make sure that area is dry. So once the area is completely dry, just go ahead and grab your Sharpie, get back in there, mark off exactly where it's at. Doesn't matter what you do, just make sure that this is really dark, or as dark as you can possibly get it, because when you sand it down, this is going to be really difficult to see. So the darker the mark, the better. Right, so yeah, once we've gone ahead and located exactly where the hole is on this thing, then we're just going to place it on the floor, just sand the area down, give it a nice little like clean matte black surface, and that'll allow the cement to basically bond with the patch that we're going to put over it. So we just need to sand this little area down, and we're just gonna, you know, get in here where the seams are, because if there's any seams, which there probably will be on your inner tube, you want to make sure that you kind of flatten those out as best as you can. And you don't want to get too aggressive with this because you can damage the inner tube. So just enough where you're going to just mar up the upper layer and make it somewhat of a flat colored black, and not so much of a clean, slick look to it. So once you've done that, then we can go ahead and proceed to the next step. Once we have finished, you know, cleaning up the area with our sandpaper, we are just going to take some cement, and I apologize if this thing's come scooping out. All right, sweet. Not this time. Sometimes this stuff will like come right out of the tube, but yeah, you're just going to take a little bit of the cement, and you're just going to create a layer over the top of the area that you've already sanded down. So if you have gloves, you can also just use your finger to kind of move the stuff around, but you basically want to cover the entire area where the patch is going to go on. So just go ahead and, you know, throw some on there. You can always clean up a little bit if you put too much, but it's better to have a little more than you need, because if there's not enough cement on here, your patch is not going to work very well or at all. All you do afterwards is you just let it sit for about 2-3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes, and it'll actually look kind of dryish, and that's what we want. All right, so now that it's kind of, that I have left it off to the side for about roughly 2 minutes, almost 3 minutes actually, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to look, you know, pretty dry for the most part. There's a slight tackiness to it, and that's what we want. So now that this part's done, we are now just going to go ahead and apply the patch. Go ahead and set it off on the ground. Get your patch ready. So get one of these babies and just go ahead and peel the backing. And then make sure that you locate exactly where the hole would be, or, you know, if you can see it, great. If you can't, it's all right. You can try to use one of your indicators that you left. For me, I know it's like this little weird kind of a seam here. It's right in the middle. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that right up in there. All right, so once you've gotten that in place, just go ahead and put this here, and you can use your thumb to kind of press it down. This is the part where the Sharpie comes back in. So what I personally like doing, and this is like probably one of the funnest parts, is I just take the Sharpie and I apply a good amount of pressure over this. So just go ahead and you make sure that you roll over this thing enough times that you get all the edges around it and in the middle, and you apply, you know, an even amount of pressure all the way. Once that's all done, good to go, then you can do one or two things. You can leave the plastic on here so it won't really do anything, but me personally, I like peeling it off after I've applied it, just for the sake of keeping things uniform. Just go ahead and grab this, grab an edge of the paper and peel this off slowly, because if you didn't get a right amount of pressure around everything, it'll probably start peeling off the patch. So just go ahead and lightly start peeling away at this thing. I can kind of see that I didn't get it on one little corner there, so I'll make sure I apply that properly. All right, so let's go ahead and try this again. Yeah, that's way better. And that's it. After you patched up your tube, I mean, that's great and all, but me personally, I mean, you can leave it as it is, but I would say to test it, you want to make sure that this is sealed, because it's kind of pointless to apply a patch and it's not sealed and then you go riding and it goes flat on you, right? So you want to make sure it's sealed up. So since we already know where the hole was and the rest of the tube has already been checked, then we can just go ahead and reapply the idea that we had earlier, which is use the water. So you're just going to go ahead and douse it back in there, check it to see if it leaks out. And the bubbles you're seeing are just from the seams on the side of the tube. It's actually no air coming out of it. And this looks really good. There's absolutely no air coming from that seal. So that's what we want. And here is the end result, the fruit of our labor, a nicely patched inner tube with, you know, the ability to retain air. So yeah, the cool part about this is that once you patch one inner tube, you can basically just start reapplying the technique immediately after. So you can patch up another inner tube, you know, another inner tube, as many inner tubes as you have, you know, and you save yourself some money and you learn something new. Of course, you're going to have to spend a little bit of money on the patch kit, and how much you spend on the patch kit is really going to vary depending on which one you get. I think overall with this patch kit and cement came out to like 20-ish bucks or so, which is the equivalent of buying like 4 brand new inner tubes that, you know, at some point are probably going to catch a flat and I'm going to have to probably to patch them or replace them. So cost effective wise, it's just cheaper to get the patch kit. So I'll make sure that I link everything about these patches and the cement in the description below. And if you guys have any comments about this, make sure you guys drop them in the comment section. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Thank you guys for watching.